to speak in the audio box, can you raise your hands? Just the screen shared. All right. I'll recognize Australia since she's the only person raising her hand. Guys, wishing to speak in the audio box. Yes, Australia.
Or since there's no one else who wants to speak, so yes, sir, that works.
Allotted. You have the next 5 minutes, delegate. You may. I'll just put the timer on. You may start, delegate. Australia, you may start. All right. I think Australia got disconnected.
Yeah.
We're gonna wait for Australia to come back. Then Australia can take the next 5 minutes since nobody want to take time. Get the charger.
All right, sir. Sir, I'm back. Sir, point of personal privilege.
Yes, ma'am. You may start, ma'am. I did see that you left. That you are disconnected. You may start, ma'am.
Sir, my computer is giving some issue. I don't understand
well.
Personal privilege.
Yes, delegates. France followed by Netherlands.
I would also like to add my name to the the Modcock.
Same here.
Delegate, I've already allotted the 5 minutes to Australia. You may raise an extension to the moderate caucus, and then you can speak. All right, since we have less delegates, I would allow an extension. You may take 2.5 minutes, and you may give another delegate 2.5 minutes. Is that okay with you?
Fine. No, I don't need
Or
2.5 minutes. I just need 1.5. That's it.
Delegate, it's completely fine. You can raise an extension to the moderate caucus. Australia, you have the next 5 minutes. You may start, delegate.
All right, delegates. So first, let's discuss about the international conventions. That is the application of international convention standards and the domestic law. It is important that the international conventions are also applied and into the domestic framework and incorporated into every national legislation and the framework. So the first one is the application of international law, that is translation from an international convention standard or norm to a national law. It is a slow process. However, it is the most important in the it's the most important is the local implementation. The states are primarily responsible for transforming legislative, administrative, and judicial practices to empower persons with disabilities to exercise their rights. States have become parties to international conventions. They're legally bound to implement these laws. However, many times the domestic frameworks often fail to do so. International law leaves it to the states to adopt such legislative and other measures without actually having a party to oversee whether they were actually implemented. So first of all, I would like to first bring to your notice that there should be an international body that looks into the actual implementation of the laws instead of just the fact that whether the states have ratified it, and leave it upon their national and domestic laws to incorporate it into their own conventions. The three main methods that are available to implement international legal instruments in domestic law are as follows. First is the direct incorporation of rights recognized in the international instrument into what may be called a Bill of Rights in the national legal order. The delegates, you might be familiar with the word Bill of Rights. However, how often is a Bill of Rights actually implemented in a constitution? Second, enactment of different legislative measures in civil, criminal, and administrative laws to give effect to the rights recognized in international legal instruments. And the third is a self-executing operation of international legal instruments in the national legal order. The course of the legislative process will differ according to the relevant domestic legal systems. Now it brings me to the next major point, that is the role of domestic courts in corporation norms and standards by domestic courts. Direct application of international law by domestic courts can also play an important role in implementing international human rights norms applicable to persons with disabilities by means of compliance with norms are on disability are widely known. Now, most important is the fact that awareness is actually spread among even the laws may be suggested by the aware of their rights, so they can actually claim them. Now that brings me to the point that it must be incorporated in the educational system, that people are made aware of the rights of the disabled people. Now this secondly brings me to the next point, that is how the countries of Australia, Finland, and other countries around the globe, like our other partners, like of the European Union, be it the NATO partners, the governments, all of us have come to a consensus that we provide funds to countries who are in need of funds to improve their infrastructure. As the delegate of Australia, we have spoken to the country of the United States, and the lines of communication were open throughout the conference. We just had a meeting with them, and they have agreed to partner with us. And because we recognize the fact that financial aid is necessary, and to actually even implement any of the norms that have been given by international legislations, and the countries are therefore decided to support to train people and take part in full-fledged surveys and provide ground support. Furthermore, the Financial Action Task Force will look after the allocation of the funds to various countries. Lastly, this brings me to the last point, which is the database. The global database, as I suggested earlier, is a database that will actually link international frameworks to national frameworks, and will also bring into implementation of the laws into picture. And this can be done by the fact that it is a closed client database that is managed by non-governmental and governmental bodies. The fact that we are not suggesting an open source database is because it can easily be modified. A closed client database will actually allow us to give equal amount of responsibility and power in the hand of governmental and non-governmental factors. Lastly, it brings me to the last and final point that I would like to elaborate on, and that is the fact that how international collaboration can play a major role, because we see that many times countries, be it countries of countries of Africa, they are not actually being able to make their physical infrastructure adaptable for all. Therefore, we must make sure that the slightest of space, like lighting should be evenly distributed. Be it parking spaces, they should not be homemade parking spaces. Rather, they should be made properly by proper designers and architects. Thank you.
All right, delegate. Thank you so much for the speech.
Welcome, sir.
All right. Are there any points on the floor? Are there any motions on the floor? Yes, Australia,
All
followed by
right. The
India.
delegate of Australia would like to raise a motion for an extension of the previous moderated caucus on the agenda, that is the discussing the analyzing the legal and the international legal frameworks, and for a total time of 10 minutes.
All right, ma'am. 10-minute extension noted. India.
Same motion as Australia.
All right, ma'am. Delegates in favor of the motion, can you raise your hands? All right, the motion passes. We have a 10. Finland, what is it?
No, like, could the delegate of Australia please reframe the statement?
Point of personal privilege.
Yeah, so point of personal
Point of
privilege.
personal privilege. Delegate Australia, kindly could you quote the topic for the moderate caucus again for the delegate of
Just
Finland?
simplify it.
All right. So you want me to simplify it? So
Delegate of Finland wants you to simplify the topic for him to
Alright.
understand it.
So basically, it is analyzing the legal and the analyzing the legal framework. So this means that when we say legal frameworks, we mean what the laws are, be it national laws, be it international laws. Hello, sir.
Finland sorted. All right, we are in a 10-minute extension of the moderated caucus. Delegates wishing to speak in the moderated caucus, kindly raise your hands. France, followed by Japan, followed by Netherlands, followed by Australia. France, followed by Japan, followed by Netherlands, Goodbye, Australia. Delegates who have been recognized and are wishing to extend their time limit, kindly raise your hands. From 60 seconds to give me a time limit. Netherlands, from 60 seconds to what time limit do you want?
90 seconds.
All right, 60 to 90. Noted, ma'am. Australia, from 60 seconds, what time do you want
Yes,
now?
sir, I would want 2 minutes.
All right, ma'am. 60 to 120. Noted, ma'am. All right, I have a delegate of France. You have the floor for the next 60 seconds. You may start, France.
Thank you so much for the recognition. Now I would like to talk about some of the legal framework which has been fabricated for the disabled. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons and with Disabilities, commonly known as CRPD, and the Pacific Framework for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The United Nations Conventions on the Rights of People with Disabilities was adopted by the UN in December 2006 and came into force by May 2008. The Pacific Framework for the Rights of People with Disabilities was endorsed by Forum leaders in 2016. The framework has five broad goals. First, livelihoods work, promote opportunities through exclusive economic development and decent work. Secondly, mainstreaming, ensure the rights of people with disabilities are included in the development strategies, national and local policies and community services,
All right, I get you have
leadership
elapsed all
and
of your time.
okay.
If you may, you can speak again if I recognize more speakers.
Fine.
And I would have to recognize more speakers since it's a 10-minute moderate caucus. Japan, you have the floor for the next 3 seconds. You may start at the rate of Japan.
Thank you for the recognition. Now I would be talking about fines for inclusion of fines for a minimum inclusion of disabled persons. As of July 2015, companies with 101 or more employees are required to pay levies if they neglect to achieve the legally required quota. In the case that an entire with a company with at least 301 workers fails to reach the quota, they are required to pay a levy of 50,000 yen per month for every person they are under the quota by. For entities with 300 or fewer workers, they are required to pay 40,000 yen per month for each person short of the quota. They are in the initial 5 years. If an entity exceeds the quota, they can apply for an adjustment allowance of 27,000 yen per month for every disabled person they employ above quota.
All right, delegate, you've elapsed all of your time. Thank you so much. Moving on, delegate of Netherlands for 90 seconds. You may start, Netherlands.
To continue from my previous speech, the government must ensure that this is well implemented. The Treaty of the States that disability should be able to make decisions independently, and that support must be available to them if they're unable to do so. The treaty promotes and provides persons with disability full personal autonomy. Another international declaration is the Declaration of the Rights of People with Disabilities. The Declaration of the Rights of People with Disabilities Disabilities was a declaration of the General Assembly of the United Nations made on 9th December 1975. It is the 3,447th resolution made by the Assembly. By enforcing the Declaration, the disabled person shall enjoy all rights contained in this Declaration without distinction or discrimination. The disabled persons have inherent rights to respect for their human dignity and irrespective of their origin, nature, and seriousness of their handicaps and disabilities. The Declaration provides the following rights: right to respect for human dignity, right to same civil and political rights as other beings, right to measures designed to enable self-reliance, right to medical, psychological, and functional treatment as necessary, right to economic and social security, including the right to employment, right to have consideration of special needs at all stages of economic and social planning, right to live with their families or their foster parents and to participate in all social, creative, and recreational activities, right to protection against exploitation, discrimination, abuse, right to qualified legal aid, right to consult organizations of disabled persons for in matters of concern, right to be fully informed the rights proclaimed in the Declaration. Thank you.
All right, delegate. Thank you so much. You exceeded your time. You exceeded time limit. But okay, I'll allow it. Delegate of Australia, the floor for the next 2 minutes. You may start Australia.
All right, delegates. So now we must.
Delegate, give me a minute. All right, you may start now.
All
I'm
right,
really sorry.
delegates. So we must note that despite there was some progress in the legislations over the past decade, violations of human rights, violation of women's rights, violation of children's rights still remains one of the major concerns the world faces. Even in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, people who are disabled are facing severe discrimination. People who are actually disabled, they face poverty, and because they face poverty, they're not uplifted. They're not made a part of the mainstream society, and obviously this has a reverse effect, and even disability can lead to poverty, and poverty can lead to disability. We must eradicate both. We must make education a part of the legal framework for one and all. Furthermore, there are certain cultural and social barriers that have served to deter full participation of persons with disabilities. Discriminatory practices against persons with disabilities thus may be a result of social and cultural norms that may have been institutionalized by law itself. Now, therefore, we need to recheck those laws which are flawed. Changes in the perception and concept of disability will involve both changes in values and increased understanding at all levels of the society. We must focus on social and cultural norms that perpetuate erroneous and inappropriate myths about disability. Some people think about black magic, the others talk about disabled people, they not being worthy of being called humans themselves. Legislation at the country level is fundamental to promoting the rights of persons with disabilities, while the importance and increasing role of international law in promoting the rights of persons with disabilities is recognized by the international community. Domestic legislations remain one of the most effective means of facilitating social change and improving the status of disabled people. And therefore the delegate repeats that international law should not be simply quoted and put into national legislation. Rather, national legislation and domestic political context of the country itself. Lastly, this brings me to the point that these standards need to be appropriately reflected in all policies and programs, not just simply national legislations, and so that people with disabilities can affect with positive changes in their lives and live a life that is worthy of being called a human. Thank you.
All right, delegate. Thank you so much. We have elapsed with this. We have 4.5 minutes. So delegates going to speak on Red Caucus again may raise their hands.
I did raise my hand earlier as well.
All right. France, do you want to be recognized?
Yes, I do.
All right. I recognize India, followed by France, followed by Australia. India, followed by France, followed by Australia. All right, Australia. Delegates wishing to extend the time from 60 seconds may raise their hands now. Shut up. All right, India, what time limit do you want?
2 minutes.
All right, India, bold move, 120 seconds. Australia.
Yes, sir. So 3 minutes.
I can't allow you 3 minutes. I can allow you 90 seconds.
All right, so that's perfectly fine.
All right, thank you so much. All right, India, you have the floor for the next 120 seconds. You may start, delegate.
India guarantees fundamental human rights to all persons. The right to equality is enriched in Article 14 and recognizes that all persons are equal before the law. Persons with disabilities are entitled to this guarantee to not be discriminated against in any manner, to be treated equally, which includes the requirement for special treatment where required. Similarly, Article 15 and 16 prohibits discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, place of birth, or any of them, and guarantees equal opportunity in matters of public employment. Article 16, 3 and 4 provides that the state can make provision for the reservation of appointments or posts in favor of any backward class of citizens which, in opinion of the state, is not adequately represented in the services. It is on the basis of Article 16 that the guarantees to reservation and equal opportunity in public employment are made under the PWD Act. The right to equality has been upheld for persons with disabilities not to be discriminated and not to be provided equal guarantees to the right of life with to all persons, which has been interpreted by the Supreme Court to include the right to live with dignity, the right to livelihood, and the right to education. Article 21 guarantees the right to freedom and compulsory education for all children below the age of 16 to 14.
Alright, you have 30 seconds left. So I'll just move on to the next speaker. France, you have the floor for the next 60 seconds. You may start, Delegate of France.
Thank you for the recognition. I would.
Delegate,
Yes.
Delegate, could you just wait for a minute? Yes, who is the point of personal privilege?
I'm Delegate of Spain. Actually, I was disconnected, so can you just give me an update of what we're doing right now?
Delegate, we're in the same moderate caucus, the one we started. It is the fifth moderate caucus of the model UN, and currently I am allowing a thing where you can ask for more time.
Okay. Delegate of
Shravan, can
Spain
you
would like
give
to
me
be added in
let
the
me
mods list.
Delegate, we have taken up the entire time because I allotted delegates who want to speak more than the allotted time. So we don't have time in the Monster Caucus. Although you can speak in the GSL or the next Monster Caucus, or you can send me a substantive chit with your speech in it. All right. All right. Moving on here, delegate of France. Very sorry, France. You may start.
It's okay. I would like to continue from my second point, which is mainstreaming. Ensure the rights of people with disabilities and included in development strategies, national and local policies, and community services. Third, leadership and enabling environment, which says develop leadership and an enabling environment for rights-based disabilities inclusive development, followed by disaster risk management. Include people with a disability in climate change adaptations measures and disaster risk management plans and policies. Fifth, evidence. Strengthen disability research and statistics and analysis. Thank you.
All right, delegate. You have 30 seconds left. Moving on, we have a delegate of Australia for the next 90 seconds. You may start, Australia.
The point of personal privilege.
Yes, Australia.
So since there were 30 seconds left over, could you please add that to my time?
Sure, delegate. You have the next 2 minutes, 30 seconds. You may start.
All right, sir. Delegates, now let's talk about human rights and how it relates to disability. Over the past decades, we can clearly see that that disability has increasingly been conceptualized and addressed as a human rights issue. Children with disabilities are entitled to rights. Yes, they are guaranteed rights, but how many times are they actually given those rights in daily life? Now it is the Convention of the Rights of Child, that is the CRC. Article number 2 asserts that children should never be discriminated against on the grounds of disability. Article number 23 emphasizes the rights and freedoms of children along with disabilities and importance of promoting their full enjoyment of life experiences and of exercising their independence to the greatest extent as possible. Now, children with disabilities are also specifically cited in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD, as we've mentioned several times in the committee. Article number 7 ensures that full enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms on an equal basis with all children. The CRPD also demands measures to protect equal rights of children with disabilities in respect of the inclusive education, family life, freedom from violence, opportunity for play, access to justice, birth registration, and protection from forced sterilization. However, how many times in domestic laws is this actually guaranteed? Is this actually implemented? That the CRC and the CRPD are mutually reinforcing the need to be actually used together as tools for adequacy. How many times are they actually used together? Delegates, how many times? They provide a human rights framework which needs to be applied to international efforts to improve the lives of children and the youth, including the 2000 to 2015 Millennium Developmental Goals. This brings me to the second point. How many times are the Sustainable Developmental Goals of eradicating poverty actually giving rights to all children? That is Sustainable Developmental Goals 3, 4, 7, and 9. Are they actually given the full access and the right to? Now, this brings me to the second point. The human rights is a framework that is underpinned by a social model of disability which focuses on barriers posed to persons with impairments by environment rather than their body impairment. These include their attitudes and prejudices of society, policies and practices of the government, and the structures of health, welfare, education, and other systems, disability is viewed as a socially created a construct and not an attribute of an individual. A disability is not a disability until a society makes it one for the person who has it. Now, girls with disabilities face other challenges, which I'll elaborate in my second speech. Thank you.
All right, ma'am. A second speech noted. All right. Like I said, we'll elapse this moderate caucus. Are there any points on the floor? Ashira, do you have a point? No.
No, sir.
All right. Moving on, we are going to continue the GSR. Delegate of India, you have the floor for the next 90 seconds. You may start, India. Delegate, you are muted.
I'm frozen.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible now. You may start.
People with disabilities are so mostly in all over the world and especially in developing countries. Most service providers, government markets, and places of employment are disability.
Delegate. I'm really sorry, but your voice got disrupted in the between. I'll request you to start again since we're in the beginning only.
Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Disabilities are
Hello?
socially excluded places.
Right. Delegate, you just got muted.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're finally audible. I would request you to start from the beginning again. And ma'am, your video got all right.
People with disabilities are socially excluded in developing
Just
countries.
join in from right. All right, go on.
People with disabilities. People with disabilities are socially excluded in developing countries and mostly all over the world. Most service providers, governments, markets, and places of employment are not equipped to enable the full participation of those who have a disability, and as a result, disabled people find themselves excluded from many aspects of their day-to-day life, including health services, economies, and educational establishment. Disabled people make up 22.2 of India's population. Discrimination against people with disabilities is based in part on cultural steps and a misguided understanding of disability, both physical and mental. The dominant attitude towards disability in India is one of social welfare. Disabled people are seen as passive victims requiring help. As a result, disabled people often feel useless, looked down and upon, treated as objects. There is a social stigma attached to the disabilities. Some see disability as a punishment for sins, and many disabled children are hidden away, neglected, or receive less food and care within the family than non-disabled children. Many of the major causes of disability in India are preventable, caused by a lack of sufficient and accessible health care services. For example, many people have a physical disability, a now treatable virus, as well of lack institutions. There is a lack of health resourcing spent on disability, especially on mental health. Due to misguided understanding of disability, disabled people find it very hard to enter the job market, as they are often seen as unemployable, presumed to be unable to carry out tasks. Although disability reservation codes do exist in government establishments, there is reservations in the private sector. A study noted that children with disability are 5 times more likely to be out of schools than children belonging to scheduled castes or scheduled tribes. This is due to the cultural stereotypes which
Delegate, you've taken 30 seconds more, but since we were typing a message to the host, I allowed your speech and I'll mark it regarding under the same. Netherlands, you have the floor for the next 90 seconds, and 90 seconds only. You may start.
Greetings to the executive board and my fellow delegates. Inclusion means that people with a disability fully participate in and belong to the society. In an inclusive society, people with disabilities can do the same things as people without disabilities. For example, they can independently use public transportation and decide for themselves where to live, work, or attend school. In an inclusive society, there are no special facilities for people with disabilities. Special facilities usually mean that people with disabilities have to be assisted by someone. True inclusion means that all buildings and all facilities are accessible to everyone and people with disabilities can use them independently. The world is changing at a very fast pace, and while we are enjoying the exceptional technological advances being made every day, we have to make sure that the people with disabilities are enjoying the same. Disabled parking and installation of lifts in every building isn't the answer anymore. We need to think further than that. We need to find solutions in everyday life, in technology, sports, education, etc., for people with disabilities. The mentality that disabled people are a burden to society must change. They are just like you and me, participating members of this society. All the privileges that we are enjoying need to be accessible to them. These privileges must be accessible to everyone at whatever level they can handle, so that each citizen, disabled or not, can participate in everyday life. It is the only way we can truly become an inclusive society. While accessibility is good, true inclusion requires awareness. The delegate of Netherlands believes that together we can achieve this and finally offer the rights that the disabled people should have in each and every country. Doing this would not only help us achieve a true
All right,
inclusion.
ma'am. I stopped now from doing this since your time got over. Are there any points on the floor? Are there any motions on? Spain, do you have a point?
Point of information for the delegate of India.
Ma'am, if you have a POI and the delegate did not have time for a POI, you may send the POI via chat, or and if you want us to mark that, you may write via EB in the chat, and you must send that in the WhatsApp group. Do not send chats on Zoom. We can't mark them. Send them on the WhatsApp group. All right. Are there any more points? Australia?
No, sir. Since you
Yeah.
asked,
All right. I'm
I'm
really
going
sorry.
to.
Are
Yes,
there any motions on the floor? Australia,
sir.
followed by India.
May I begin?
Yes, ma'am.
All
May
right.
begin.
The delegate of Australia would like to suspend formal debate and move into a moderated caucus on the topic reflecting on the past and the national community for a total time of 20 minutes. Individual speakers'
Ma'am, what
time
was
being 60
total
seconds.
time being?
20.
2060.
Ma'am, we can't take 20 since we are gonna be having a
All right,
break
sir. Perfect.
at 4
Then
from
10.
Would like to suspend formal debate and move into a moderated caucus on the topic role of education in disability and
Actually, your voice is breaking. Can you repeat the motion again? India, another device, and then come back. We can wait for you if that's okay with the committee.
Yes, sure. So, do I know the Sure. The delegate of India
Right.
would like to suspend formal debate and move into a modality for a total time of 10 minutes. Individual speakers time 60 seconds.
All right, 1060, 1060. By default, India, Australia spoke your motion for you since your audio was not audible to me. All right, Australia been getting a lot of speaking time. Australia's motion 1060, moderate caucus. That is in favor of the motion. Can you raise your hands? All right, the motion. Yeah, the motion delegates wishing to speak in the moderate caucus. Kindly raise your hands. Australia, as you first speaker.
Yes, sir.
Obviously. All right. Australia, followed by Japan, followed by Spain.
point of Would the delegate of Australia please repeat the topic as my internet?
Um, so the topic is just a moment. So I have to quote it the exact same way, right? Just give me one moment then. I've
It
written it.
says
So just give me a
reflecting on
moment.
past trends. No, sorry.
In the national and the international
International community.
community
Yes.
about the agenda.
All right. Just somebody just quoted once. I recognize France as well in the speakers list. Australia or France? Can you just quote the topic again?
Yes, sir. Reflecting on the past trends in the national and the international community pertaining to the agenda.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. India, is that okay?
Yes.
noted the no. I note nods. It's okay. Guys, at this point of time, the committee is very informal, and I think we're gonna have a guest delegate today.
I don't know.
We probably might have Pakistan and Russian Federation again.
Is Siddhant coming? When?
Probably.
We are betting he is, but
Yeah.
let's see. Very sorry. All right. Are there any more speakers for the moderate caucus? I recognize India. I'll take Finland. I think that's it.
So point of personal privilege.
Yes, delegate.
So considering we have full 10 minutes and we do not exactly have 10 speakers, so could we please have a motion to increase the per speaker time?
Yes, delegate. I allow that.
All right. So
What time do you want?
so 2 minutes.
All right, delegates 60 to 120 noted. Delegates wishing to extend their time, the individual speaker time, kindly raise your hands. France, do you wish to change your time, individual speaker's time?
Yes, I wish to exceed it to 120 seconds if possible.
All right, France 60 to 120 noted. Any other delegates? India followed by Spain followed by Finland. Just speak your times. Should I give everybody 120 seconds?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. I want.
Oh, sir.
All right, sir. You're just cool.
Australia, it was.
Sir, 120 sounds like 90 to me. Sir, so it's fine. 2 minutes is perfectly fine.
Delegates who have raised their hands, India, Spain, and Finland, do you want your time to 2 minutes?
Yes.
All right, I mean, every 2 minutes. Great. The monitor office is 10 to 120. Delegates, you may start Australia in the next 120 seconds. You may start Australia.
All right, delegates. So it's important to note that governments need to review and revise their existing legislations and policies for consistency with the CRPD, review and revise compliance and enforcement mechanisms. Please pay emphasis to the word enforcement mechanisms must be improved so that implementation of the laws can be made better. We must review mainstream and disability specific policies, systems and services to identify gaps and barriers and plan specific actions to overcome them. We need to develop a national disability around the world along with an action plan establishing clear lines of responsibility and mechanisms for coordination, monitoring and reporting across all sectors, be it the informal sector, the formal sector. We need to be brought it to a suggested by all the previous speeches. We need to regulate service provision by introducing service standards and monitoring and enforcing compliance. We need to adequately allocate resources to existing publicly funded services and appropriately fund the implementation of national disability strategies and the plan of actions. We need to adopt a national accessibility standards and ensure compliance with new buildings, new transport, new information and communication systems. We need to introduce measures to ensure that people with disabilities are protected from poverty and benefit mainstream poverty programs. We need to include disability in the national data collection systems, implement commitments, increase public knowledge, and lastly, establish channels with persons with disabilities and third parties to lodge complaints on human rights issues and laws that are not implemented or enforced. We need to as well now what the UN can do. We need to include disability in the development aid programs using the twin track approach. We need to exchange information and coordinate actions to agree on priorities for initiatives to learn lessons and not duplicate the previous failed results. We need to provide assistance to countries to strengthen their capacities on existing policies, and lastly, contribute to the development of internationally comparable research methodologies. Thank you.
All right, delegate. 2 minutes. Exceeded 2 minutes. Noted. Japan, 2 minutes. Start.
Thank you for the recognition. Japan signed the CRPD in September 2007 but did not ratify it until 20th January 2000, along with being the 140th country to ratify the CRPD. Japan had set a basic law for persons with disabilities in 1970 which aim to promote welfare of persons with disabilities. Prior to ratifying the CRPD, the cabinet made a decision in 2010 to revise this act. Major amendments include recognizing sign language as an official language, creating a new framework for disability consumer protection, improving accommodation for voting, and introducing measures to reduce crimes against the disabled. Additionally, a disability police committee was set up to ensure a full discussion of relevant issues on issues on place before any changes are made to such matters. Fundamental principles of the basic law for persons with disabilities are: 1. Every person with a disability shall have a right to be respected for his or her own individual dignity and lead a decent life. 2. Every person with disability as a member of society shall be entitled to opportunity to participate in social, economic, cultural, and all other activities in society. 3. No one shall be allowed to discriminate against persons with disabilities or violate their rights and benefits on the basis of their disability. Thank you.
All right, delegate. Noted. Delegate Spain, you may start. 120 seconds. You know what? I just
Point of
delegate. Just give me a minute. I'll just put a
privilege.
timer on. All right. Yeah. All right, delegate. You may start.
National
Alright.
Disability Strategies and Action Plan can play an important role in coordinating and guiding the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities (CRPD) by highlighting areas which will be prioritized at the national level. Disability strategies and action plans typically present measures and milestones which a country intends to reach by the end of the period covered by the strategy or plan. They can also make a significant contribution towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goal (SDGs) and the pledge of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and no one will be left behind. The Spanish government had passed an action plan for people with disabilities in the year 2009 to 2012. This action plan has at its core the goal of promoting the independence of persons with disabilities in order to allow them opportunities offered by other policies and to foster social cohesion. The plan, which defines disability as a component of a human diversity, is organized around seven thematic areas: empowerment and participation, education and culture, employment, health, abuses and violence, social and legal protection. The Spanish government had issued many laws to help the disabled people, like in 2012. Its objective is the promotion of autonomy so that people with disabilities benefit from all equal opportunities policies, recognizing the disability as a component of human diversity, favoring in this way cohesion in a society complex. Therefore, as a government strategy, it forces the government that acts as a directing or guiding plan for policies of the CCAA or NGOs. This plan is mainly concerned about 1. Power and participation, 2. Education and culture, 3. Job, 4th. Health, 5th. Abuses and violence, 6th. Social and legal protection aimed at the most vulnerable group of the differently abled. In its preparation, it has also taken into account the situation of women and men with disabilities. Thank you.
All right, delegate. Thank you so much. Moving on, we have the delegate of France. 2 minutes. You may start, France.
Thank you so much for the recognition. Now let's talk about the Professional Future Law of 2018 amended the obligation disabled workers requiring the following by January 1, 2020, which comprised of recognition of the status of disabled worker will be granted definitively if a person's disability is considered irreversible. Currently, such recognition is granted for a period of 1 to 5 years. In multi-establishment companies, the OETH will no longer apply establishment by establishment, but at the company level. Followed by the employer will only be able to fulfill its employment obligation by employing OETH beneficiaries, regardless of the duration and the nature of the contract, or by paying an annual contribution to the development fund for the professional integration of the disabled for each of the beneficiaries of the obligation it should have employed. Then the current mechanisms for reducing the number of missing disabled workers as part of the employer's efforts to maintain employment or directly recruit beneficiaries of the employment obligations will be abolished, followed by companies with at least 250 employees must appoint a designed person, sorry, a designated person to guide, inform, and support people with disabilities. The position is open to any voluntary employee who can attend a 3-day training course called Refrain Handicap, offered by the OETH Association in partnership with CAP Employee. The its results and outcomes are listed companies where the net turnover exceeds 12 million euros or balance sheet total exceeds 20 million euros, and the average number of employees employed during the financial year exceeds 500, and unlisted companies where the balance sheet is total or net turnover exceeds 100 million euros and the average number of employees employed during the financial year exceeds 500. Thank you.
All right, Franz, could you send all the statistics you said at the end regarding money in the and you said the statistics, right? Could you just send them in the WhatsApp group or just send them to me personally?
Okay, I will do that. I will do that.
All right, thank you so much, Franz. Moving on, we have India for the next 2 minutes, followed by Finland for the next 2 minutes. Then we'll break. Then we'll have a break for 30 minutes. All right, India, you have the floor for the next 2 minutes. You may start, India.
Disability is Disability is an important public health problem, especially in developing countries. The problem will increase in future because of the increased trend of non-communicable diseases and change in age structure with an increase in life expectancy. The issues are different in developed and developing countries, and measures should be targeted according to the needs of the disabled with community participation. In India, a majority of the disabled resides in villages and urban areas where accessibility, availability, and utilization services is cost effectiveness and other main issues to be considered. Research on disability burden, appropriate intervention strategies, and their implication to be the present context in India is a big challenge. Recent data was collected from various sources and analyzed. This paper discusses various issues and challenges related to disability services in India and emphasizes to strengthen healthcare and service delivery to disabled in the community. Any restriction or lack of ability to perform an activity in a manner or within the range considered normal for the human beings resulting from is termed as disability. Impairment concerns the physical aspects of health. Disability is the loss of functional capacities resulting from an inherent organ handicap is a measure of the social and cultural consequences of an impairment or disability. The types of disability include locomotor, hearing, speech, virtual, and mental disability. Recent development in the International Classification of Functioning Disability and Health, developed by WHO in 2000, which has been used in the multi-country service study during 2000 and 2001 and has come to an end that 71 countries and the general population have disabilities.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. Moving on, we have the delegate of Finland. You have the floor for the next 2 minutes. Finland, you may start.
Thank you for recognizing me. So as all of us are talking about equality between disabled, so let's take an example by the UK of Equality Act 2010, wherein they say an act to make provision to require ministers of the crown and others when making strategic decisions about the exercise of their functions have regard to the desirability of reducing socio-economic inequalities. So even Finland has also done an important job saying. So Finnish law states that a disabled person must not be discriminated against because of his or her disability. A disabled person has the right to live a normal life, for example, to study, work, and start a family. Finland is also committed to the UN Treaty on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. A disabled person may have difficulties in managing matters of everyday life due to his or her ability or illness. Municipalities are required to offer services for disabled persons who need them. These services include, for example, transport and assist services. If you have a resident permit and a municipality of residence in Finland, you are entitled to do the disability services offered by your municipality. There are several organizations in Finland which strive to improve the status of the disabled in society. These organizations can provide you with advice and assistance on, for example, how to apply for services. They also often provide leisure time activities and peer support to persons of all ages. Thank you.
All right, delegate, thank you so much. Now we've exhausted, we've finished the moderator caucus. On my
Point
discussion,
of personal privilege.
yes, France.
Could I just get half a minute to complete whatever I was saying? Then I would be done with my
All right, France, I allow it since Finland
The
had 30
point of
seconds
personal
left.
privilege.
Thank you so much.
The point.
Yes,
Sir, could I
Australia.
also get just 15 seconds?
Delegate, we have to break for lunch. I can allow one delegate. I allowed France. You may take all the time we have after the break. Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir. So last point. Sir,
I'm saying figuratively, you're not getting 1.5 hours. Just I'm saying figuratively. You can send me a chat or you can speak in the committee that you want individual speakers time. That would be moderated. What? I'm very sorry. Just if you want to speak a point, you can send it to me via chat, like you have been sending me points, or you could just speak it in a
so
speech.
the chat
And
point,
we'll
sir,
do
will
an
it be noted
extension.
as a speech, sir? Considering you said the chat to speech ratio was just 8 to 20, sirs. That's why if I
If
send
you're
it to via
sending
chat,
me,
I'll lose
just
out,
mention now
sirs.
you're sending. Listen, listen to me. If you're sending me a part of your speech, I will mark it like
All
a
right, sir. So
speech.
the last
Okay?
chat I sent you,
Just mention that
that is, sir, completely.
that was a speech. That was all right. Just reply to that text and just write in brackets part of
Yes,
speech.
sir.
All right.
Noted.
Sarita, thank you. All right, France, you have 30 seconds. You may start.
I'm highly obliged. Finally, from Jan 2019 to December 31, 2021, a new reason for using temporary work is being tested. The fact that temporary employee is a beneficiary to the OETH, the government will report to Parliament on the impact of this experiment on access to employment for people with disabilities by June 30, 2021.
Oh, all right, delegate. Thank you so much. We have 6 seconds that go to me on my discretion. I take those 6 seconds. Australia, you're not getting the 6 seconds. Delegates, we'll be having a 30-minute break from 4 to 4:30 from right now to whatever 30 minutes
436.
is. I think.
436.
Yes, thank you so much. 4:36. I'm putting on a timer. You guys can go eat, go to the washroom, do whatever the hell you want to. In the next 30 minutes,
As quoted by famous Stephen Hawking, my advice to other disabled people would be concentrate on things your disability doesn't prevent you doing well. Don't regret the thing it interferes with. Unquote. Furthermore, many other famous personalities have also outgrown their disabilities and become very successful in life. We all know the famous singer Billie Eilish. She had recently confronted that she was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome at a very young age. Yet, she overcame her fear of coming out in public and now is considered as a role model by many people. We all know the great Alexander Graham Bell, the man who discovered the first practical telephone. He had a learning disability, but is still date worshipped. My point being that if these people would not have come out and fought the society, they wouldn't have been here where they are today. Spain believes that we can make life easier for the differently abled of the coming generation. Many Spanish citizens think in the same way, because of which a great majority of private national or regional representative organizations of people created in 1997 known as CERMI, Spanish Committee of Representatives of People with Disabilities. Spain feels that they are taking many initiatives to help the disabled, unlike other countries in the world like Germany. As in Germany, for many years, people with disabilities have called for legislation to provide them with better benefits and opportunities in life and work. In 2016, the German parliament passed such a reform, but it is clearly not enough. Thank you.
all right, ma'am. Thank you so much. Finally, another allegation since yesterday. The first allegation in the committee, delegates, just know this down. The first allegation in a speech that I have recognized is by Spain. I recognize allegations by Australia. I'm not going to mention Australia. You know, you did allegations. That is very well noted. But the first allegation, except Australia, is by Spain since yesterday in the last hour of the committee. खुद देख लो अब. ठीक है. We have Finland. You have the floor for the next 90 seconds. Delegate, you may start.
Wait. I was point of personal privilege. I actually joined a bit late, so can I be updated with what?
Delegate, We can take time, but in the GSL, it's the GSL, so you have to speak now. Just like take time, get your speech. It's okay. They can give you time, completely fine.
Okay, can I go at last of the sentence?
Like you can't go at last. You're the next speaker. You have to speak in the GSL.
Okay, okay. Just
You
give
may
me a
start, delegate.
yeah, just give me okay. So future plan of Finland, of what they are planning to do. So Finland has a strong reputation as a leader in sustainable development. International comparisons show that Finland is doing well on many indicators. Our society is fairly equal, inequality is relatively rare, and most Finns are well educated. In addition, public healthcare and a wide range of cultural and sports services ensure our well-being in a manner that many countries cannot even dream about. However, a relatively good situation is no reason for us to rest on our laurels. The world is changing and Finland must keep up with changes. Because of a good situation, we are well positioned to address the natural challenges in sustainable development and take global responsibility. Global problems. Uh, 1 second. Our society is very equal. And the world is changing and Finland must keep up with changes. Because of a good situation, we're well positioned to address the nation's challenges in sustainable development. Global problems affect Finland and our actions have international effects. We're closely connected with Earth's 7.5 billion people, 2 million animal species, 5 oceans, and 6 continents. Thank you.
All right, delegate. You have 13 seconds remaining. What would you like to do with your time?
I would give for the question and answers.
Pardon what?
So he means point of information.
Point
All
of
right. I thought questions. All right.
information.
Are there any POIs for delegate of Finland? I recognize
Yes.
Spain, not you, Australia. Spain. What is your POI for the delegate of Finland? You are muted, delegate. Spain.
You clearly stated that your government has done many things for the betterment of the disabled people, but I don't think it's enough because still many people are fighting for their lives daily, and approx 25,000 people in Finland have not received those rights.
Uh, right to reply back.
Delegate, you are supposed to reply. Reply.
Yes, sorry. So, Spain, delegate of Spain, we are actually trying hard. Many initiatives have been taken by the Finland government, and as discussed yesterday, it is just the starting, and it will spread as time permits. Hope that answers your question.
All right. Is that all, delegate? Did you get your answer?
Yes.
So
All
point of
right.
personal privilege.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, would you be accepting another POI, sir, considering it's very important for the flow of debate?
Sorry. Yes, you may present your POI, delegate of Australia.
All right. So these are statistics that have been taken from from the national portal, and they state that 25% of the individuals who are actually disabled, they lead lives of they're severely below the poverty line. 28% of children living in families with a disabled member are at risk of income poverty and material deprivation, compared to 17% of all children. Only 27.3% of the actual total population live in who are disabled. They get to live in a proper accommodation, that is, they have a roof over their head. And we say that 32%, the percentage of disabled people experiencing difficulties in accessing goods or services related to impairment or disability has increased from 37% to 43% from the year 2008 to 2018. Sir, how would you like to explain these statistics, keeping in mind all the number of conventions and the articles you have been stating for the entirety of the committee? Sir, how do you explain these stats and figures?
Could you please reframe your question?
All right. So should I? Okay, fine. So 25% of all individuals and families, they face income poverty, compared to 16% of households where they have no disabled members. 28% of children living in families with a disabled are at risk of income poverty when compared to 17% of all children. Housing including a disabled person are slightly are significantly
Frame
more
your
likely
question in a
living.
short form. Frame the question properly. For heaven's sake, frame it. He's scared of you. Just frame it in a short form, please. Thank you very much.
All right. So people who are disabled, they are at more risk of poverty, housing, and inequality in your society. How do you explain that?
Like in the past few years, it has actually increased the person the person has actually been a lot. But as I've already talking to the delegate of Spain, the the person has actually come low in the past years, and the unemployed rate has actually decreased over the years, in the past few years, like 2017 and 2018. So the Finland government is actually trying its level best of spreading the news and spreading the word around the country. And it has also been with the UN, and it has also taken initiatives. Hope that answers your question.
So
It'll
please
take
to follow up. So please to follow
Granted.
up.
Granted,
All
granted,
right.
granted,
All
granted, 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 granted.
All right, delegate. So your national portal has already stated this. I would like to bring to your notice that education employment rates of your country. The employment rate for disabled people has fallen from 48.4% in 2008 to 38.7% in 2018, and this varies with reference to the different impairments. For example, people with diabetes, for example, they have 70% less chance of being employed with reference to other kind of disabilities. So how do you like to clearly how do you relate these stats and figures to something you've been quoting the entirety of the committee in relation to all the
He's
conventions
just a
that
kid. He's just a kid.
I
Answer.
am going to ask. Australia, I understand it's a follow-up question. He's a first timer, all right? Frame it in a way so that he can give us an answer so I can receive some points for that answer, all right? Thank you
Okay.
so much, Australia. Just give us
ऐसे
some
ना बोलो यार. Question पूछो.
Don't put
All-
way too many. Ari, Islam is very sorry. She loves to attend calls and she does not care about the commit. Islam, you shall be charged with something called hitting me. All right, never mind. Australia, 3 to all have denied. You need to move on with the committee.
all right. बढ़िया.
All right. Are there any points on the floor? Are there any motions on the floor? Yes, Australia.
So the delegate of Australia would like to suspend formal debate and move into a moderated caucus for a total time of 20 minutes, each speaker's time being 60 seconds on the topic cultural and religious impact of the condition of the disabled. Done.
2060 mod. All right, Australia. Are there any more motions on the floor? I'll take France.
It was the same topic.
All right. India, same motion. Japan, same motion.
No.
All
Sir,
right.
I have a
India, you
different
make.
motion.
All right. India.
The delegate of India would like to suspend formal debate and move into a moderated caucus on the topic.
Yes.
India, you muted.
India, you got muted.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible now, delegate. Just give me a minute, ma'am. India.
Education on disabilities and employment.
Timing.
2060.
2060. All right. I have two motions. 2060. Japan, I do not recognize you. I just take these two motions. They can vote upon them.
Point
Motion
of
proposed.
privilege. Point of motion.
Yes,
privilege.
France.
Could the delegate of India repeat its topic?
India, could you repeat the topic for your moderate caucus?
Role of education in disabilities in employment.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Voting upon the motion proposed by the delegate of India. Delegates in
The
favor?
point of order on the executive board.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, considering the order of precedence, sir, shouldn't the motion raised by the delegate of Australia be voted upon first, considering that they both take up equal amount of floor time?
Ma'am, you
Sir, so
know
the
what's
one
gonna
that's
get.
raised.
All right, ma'am. You know what's gonna get passed. That's why I took India's vote first. I need to get everybody recognition a little bit, right? Thank you so much.
Sir, so is the point of order in order?
Yes, my point of order was taken in order, but the point of order was discarded when it came to my discretion. All right. The motion proposed by the delegate of India. Delegates in favor. The motion passes. Delegates in the
Sir?
favor in favor of. Yes, there was one vote, ma'am. 2 votes. See. All right. The motion
Sir.
clearly. India, delegate of India. Yeah, just calm down. Don't disrupt formal proceedings, ma'am. I understand we are very informal right now, and I'm very cool with that. But,
All right, sir, noted.
Delegate of the motion proposed by I'm very sorry, delegates. The motion proposed by delegate of Australia 2060. Delegates in favor?
For Australia?
Yes, for Australia. Even I raise my hand. The motion clearly passes. The motion clearly passes on a 20-minute moderated caucus. Each speaker's timing 60 seconds. I am gonna accept extensions for each speaker's timing as usual. Delegates wishing to speak in the moderated caucus, kindly raise your hands. Australia for speaker, obviously, right? I'm not even gonna ask at this point of time because I'm going very informal, guys. I'm just trying to make this committee a little fun because we had a very deadbeat committee yesterday and I really want to have a fun committee because I've been very bored and I almost quit MUNs regarding committees being boring. All right, I need to start up. Yes, what? All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Point
All
of
right,
personal privilege.
Yes, ma'am.
Could the delegate of Australia please repeat the topic?
The topic
Should I read the
says
topic?
Sir, so
France,
should I repeat
delegate of
it?
France, delegate of France. I said delegate of Australia.
okay, sorry.
All
Australia.
right. The topic is cultural and religious impact on the condition of the disabled.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, delegates wishing to speak in the moderated caucus, kindly raise your hands. I recognize Spain, Finland, India. Spain, India, France, Japan. Who is Tamanna Chandak? Some pronouncing the name.
Germany.
Delegate, just put Germany in front of your name now. I recognize Germany, Japan, I recognize France, I recognized India. All right. Yeah, that's all for now. I will be recognizing more speakers and I will take a motion for are there any motions on the floor? Motion to extend individual speakers timing for the delegate. Are delegates wishing to extend their speakers timing, kindly raise your hands. Japan, followed by India, followed by Australia, followed by Germany, followed by France. Just keep your hands
The
up.
point of
Japan.
personal privilege.
Yes, Japan.
May I be last on the moderated caucus?
Oh, all right, Japan. I can make that happen. You are the second last person, so I'll just put you at last. All right, India.
90 seconds. 90
Pardon?
seconds.
90 seconds. All right, ma'am. Delegate of, Australia.
All right. So the delegate of Australia would like to raise a motion to increase the individual speaker time to 150 seconds per speaker,
Per speaker or specifically for you?
specifically for me.
Yeah, all right. 150 seconds, noted, ma'am. 2 minutes 30 seconds, granted. Delegate of Germany. Delegate, you are muted.
120 seconds.
All right, Germany, 120 seconds, noted. Spain. Oh, sorry, France, followed by Spain.
160.
All right, France, 160. I can't give you 160. Can I give you 150?
Okay, that would do.
All right, great. 2 minutes 30 seconds. Spain.
150 seconds.
150. All right. Everyone's 2 minutes 50 seconds. Great. All right. Finland. What is it?
120 seconds.
All right. Finland 120 seconds. Noted, delegate. Can we get the moderate caucus delegates? Or are there any more extensions? All right. I'm not intending any more extensions. We're going to start with the moderate caucus. Australia, at the floor for the next 2 minutes 30 seconds. You may start, delegate.
All right, sir. So am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Australia.
All right, delegates. Now here I'm going to divide my speech into 3 parts. That is, firstly, how increasing public awareness and understanding needs to play a crucial role in eradicating the disability, the difficulties faced by people who are disabled. Now, mutual respect and understanding contribute to an inclusive society, and it is therefore that vital to improve the public understanding of disability, confront negative perceptions, and represent disability fairly. Now, what does this mean? Collecting information on knowledge, beliefs, attitude about disability can help identify gaps in public understanding that can be bridged through education and public information. Governments, voluntary organizations, professional associations should consider running social marketing campaigns and change attitudes on stigmatized issues like HIV, AIDS, mental illnesses, leprosy, or be it something like black magic. Furthermore, involving the media is vital to the success of these campaigns and ensuring the dissemination of positive stories about persons with disabilities and their families. Only when there is positive information can negative information be conquered and eradicated as a society. Furthermore, it is important to provide for improving disability data collection. Now, how does this link to the topic at hand? Well, internationally, methodologies for collecting data on people with disabilities need to be developed. People are stigmatized about this issue, and therefore they do not even collect information about the issue. Now we can only do this through cross-culturally and applying consistency on the data collection methods. Data need to be standardized and internationally comparable to set a particular benchmark, norm, standards, so that countries can actually know where they are headed, which direction they are going in. Data needs to be comparable, and therefore policies must be framed on the CRPD nationally and internationally. Nationally, disability should be included in data collection. Uniform definitions of disability based on the ICF can allow internationally comparable data. Lastly, I would like to come to my third point, that is strengthening and supporting research on disability. Now, how does this relate to the topic at hand? Well, research is essential for increasing public understanding about disability issues, informing disability policies and programs, and efficiently allocating resources. Therefore, it is recommended that research on disability, including the impact of environmental factors, that is, policies, physical environments, and attitudes on disability, and how to measure it, the quality of life and well-being for people with disabilities, and what works in overcoming these barriers in different contexts, and the effectiveness of the outcomes of services and programs for persons with disabilities. Thank you.
All right, delegate. Thank you so much. Moving on, we have the delegate. Can you, ma'am? All right. Thank you. Delegate of Spain, 2 minutes. You may wait. Sorry. 1 minute 50 seconds. Spain, you may start, delegate.
Thank you, Evie, for the recognition. The available empirical evidence primarily concerns the condition of disabled people living in developed countries. We know relatively little about the 80% of the world population living in developing countries. The World Report on Disability sketches a picture in which the condition of disabled people represent many disadvantages compared to that of the people without disabilities, including health, education, work, and financial disadvantages. It is necessary to implement new inclusive policies in order to counterbalance this situation. The World Bank has recently defined social inclusion as, and I quote, the process of improving the ability, opportunity, and dignity of people disadvantaged on the basis of their identity to take part in society, unquote. The analysis of the phenomena of exclusion is often limited to point out that some social groups are at times underrepresented. But what we need is a more rigorous reflection on why this happens and on all the processes generating social exclusion, not only those related to a situation or deprivation. In other words, we have to go deeper into the system of beliefs and social norms that feed the process of exclusion. A number of factors can contribute to the formation and perpetuation of negative beliefs about disability. These include: first, lack of understanding and awareness of disability; second, misconceptions or social construction concerning the causes of disabilities; third, informed and insensitive media coverage that perpetuates negative views; fourth, reinforcement of prejudice and fears through law and policy that may affirm harmful beliefs and disability. The perspective is especially relevant for disabled people. Their disadvantage does not simply consist in having less easy access to social and financial resources, for their situation is weakened by all the symbols culture used in order to cope with uncanny phenomena such as disability. In Spain, the structure organizing social care and sports services for persons with disabilities is highly appreciable. First, from a territorial point of view, both the central government and the national governments have different powers on the issue. Second, there are several policy sectors involved in the provision of services for persons with disabilities, in particular healthcare, education, long-term care, justice, employment, culture, public work, and social services. Disabled people are treated in different ways depending on how their disability is perceived with respect to the socially accepted criteria defining what a full personality is. Thank you.
All right, now thank you so much. Finland, you have the floor for the next 2 minutes. You may start, Finland.
Thank you for recognizing me. So, cultural factors influence our attitudes towards most of the happenings around us, including our attitudes towards disability and rehabilitation. The term handicap is defined in relation to contextual factors that are predominantly cultural. Though the influence of cultural factors is great, many community-based rehabilitation programs fail to recognize them sufficiently. Western stereotypes of community are used in the planning of many CBR programs in developing countries whose communities have their own individuality. These programs expose themselves to higher risk of failure because they tend to conflict with the cultural factors of the host country. In many cultures, social interdependence and an individual's role within the larger family and community are highly valued, while independence and autonomy are valued less than in Western cultures. This perspective can affect how disability is perceived. Many cultures seek out spiritual healers and traditional alternate medicines. Health practitioners should acknowledge and consider the culture of the child and family in care. Health practitioners should work with the social and cultural framework of the family, ideally by involving cultural aspects. This may be crucial to success. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Your laptop. Give us a minute, delegate. Ready, sorry for the wait, delegates. Delegate of India, you have the floor for the next 90 seconds. You may start, delegate. India. Delegate of India. Delegate. Yeah. Delegate, just join the meeting again. I'm putting you in the last. I think there's a message. Just give some delegates. India, you're not audible. Leave the meeting, join the meeting again. I'm putting you as the last speaker for now, after Japan. Delegates will end the session at 5:30 today. All right. France, you have the floor for the next 2 minutes, 30 seconds. You may start.
Before I start, can I decrease it to 2 minutes?
Pardon?
Can I decrease the time to 2 minutes instead of
120
2 minutes,
seconds?
30 seconds?
Done.
Yes.
No
So,
worries.
point of
No
personal
worries.
privilege.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
She
may I
wants
have
it
the
actually.
Yes, sir.
All right, Australia, you may speak after India for 30 seconds. All right.
All right, sir. Thank you.
As the last speaker. All right.
So, point of personal privilege.
Yes, Japan.
So, can I extend my time to 2 minutes?
All right, Japan. You take all the time you need, man, sir. No worries. 2 minutes, Japan, give it. All right.
Personal privilege.
Yes, Netherlands.
Could the delegate of Netherlands be added to the
Delegate, I'll recognize you after. All right, I'll add you before Australia.
Thank you.
All right, Netherlands. France, you may start.
Okay, thank you for the recognition, EB. Now let's start with the influence of cultural factors on disability and rehabilitation in developing countries. Cultural factors influence our attitudes towards the most of the happenings around us, including our attitudes towards disability and rehabilitation. The term handicap is defined in relation to contextual factors that are predominantly cultural. Though the influence of cultural factors is great, many community based rehabilitation programs fail to recognize them sufficiently. Western stereotypes of committee are used in the planning of many CBR programs in developing countries whose communities have their own individuality. These programs expose themselves to a higher risk of failure because they tend to conflict with the cultural factors of the host country. In the following in the following speech, an attempt is made to illustrate the significance of cultural influences on disability and rehabilitation in the context of CBR. In many developing countries, in many developing countries, individual rights as expressed in industrialized nations do not exist. Traditionally, in these countries, an individual is born as in a group with a network of relations that involve mutual obligations with regard to religious and economic factors. People look towards their immediate kind for welfare and help rather than the traditional Western types of formal services. Because of this kind of relationship, this process of empowerment of an individual in the society is more complex. In respective of whether he is a disabled person or otherwise. Hence, during planning of rehabilitation programs, one has also considered the different aspects of cultural influences in
All
these
right, Delegate, thank you
countries.
so much. 2 minutes done. All right, now we have Germany for 2 minutes. Germany, you may start.
Thank you for the recognition. Beliefs now may be based on how disability was acquired. A person born with physical disability may experience greater bias than a person who later acquired their impairment. Their families also are it is stigma is often resulting the status of the family and disabled person reducing their status. Now, in some cases, people with disabilities are subjected to physical violence and assault as a result of stigma and harmful beliefs. Now, if we talk about religion, there are many religions which most of the religions have some or the other meaning of disability. Like most Buddhists believe that disability is a consequence of karma. They show compassion towards people with disabled people, but there are still people who exist towards them. Now, in parts of Bible, physical disability is portrayed as a punishment for sinners, and but still Christians feel that disability is a gift from God. It is as if it is a challenge set by Allah, the God, the Islamic God. Now is the point that delegate of Germany would like to establish here that believe in such things that lead you to mistreat any other person because each and every life counts.
Delegate, you were talking about stigmatization and stereotypes, right? Regarding disabled people,
Yeah.
and you brought in religion, and are you open to a question?
Yes, sir.
It's not an ethically eco question. It's an HRCR question. If you're okay, if you're open to it,
Yes, sir.
Delegate, you are Germany, right? Germany has been in. I'm not going to talk about the I'm going to talk about the past 5 years. There have been way too many hate crimes regarding Muslims, which was the main focus of your speech. Islam was the end point of your speech, right?
Yes,
Islam
sir.
people have been discriminated and been violently killed, and public what's the word for that? Public defamation. If that's a correct word, I'm really sorry, I'm slurring right now. Public defamation and public humiliation done to peer Muslims. How do you respond to that? Since you talked stigmatization should not be believed in, yet German citizens do completely believe in it and do completely hate Muslims to an extent where people were killed publicly and still report and the journalist who reported the news. I think his name was Umad something, Umad Mueller something, and the journalist was killed 2 days later. How do you comment on that, Delegate? Thank you so much.
He does not believe in stigmatization. This is what is the Islam, the Muslim people have been discriminated against. Now the government of Germany has been taking action, but at the same point, the government cannot go and ask people to listen, wake up, and you are not supposed to do this. We can't change their thought process. We can take actions, but we cannot change their thought process, because that is something once the person realizes can only do it themselves. It is not up to the government or any other person, for the matter of fact, to change anybody's thought process. Thank
Point
you.
of person privilege. So would the chair be accepting a POI to the delegate of Germany? So it is very
Yes,
important
yes,
to
I
flow
would
audio.
interfere to Germany. Go on, Australia. Go on.
All right. Delegate, so as you would be aware, the defamation of religion in Germany, there have been 13 instances over the past 1 year where there is severe defamation of religion that has taken place, not only against Muslims or Islam. We say Christianity, we say Hinduism. People have actually there has been instances of beheading and slaughtering which has happened. And furthermore, Muslims in your country, they are not only defamed and they are not only publicly humiliated but often killed. Furthermore, academic institutions themselves have been caught in many instances of not allowing admissions to several people belonging to following Islamism. The private sector has reserved jobs, was claimed to have reserved jobs, however has not done so for any particular religion. Furthermore, there was the fact that the government claimed it would remove barriers to microfinance so that people with disabilities could build their own businesses. However, your own government was proven wrong, and it was clarified that such barriers were not only removed, rather they were enhanced by certain policies that were passed by the National Bank itself. How would you explain all of this, considering the number of legislations, ratification, and the speeches that you have given in the past entirety of the committee, claiming that defamation of religion is just a bad thing?
Okay, delegate. The delegate of Germany has understood your question. You are just to confirm, you're trying to say that it is the government of Germany who is stigmatizing and not taking any action to protect people from certain religions such as Christianity and Islamic people. Is that correct?
Chair, sir, so the delegate is asking me a question in the reply. Sir, am I allowed to clarify what my question was?
If you could clarify it in a sentence,
I
it would be very nice for all of us.
Yes, honestly, yes. Thank you so much, Franz. Franz, that is not acceptable in the committee, but that is exactly what I would have said if I was a delegate and if I was me as a delegate in the committee. Thank you, Franz. Australia, if you can answer the question in one line without any statistics or
All
facts,
right,
I would allow it.
sir. I just have to ask the question, right? So, answering what the delegate of Germany just asked me, no, ma'am, that is completely not my question. I am saying that in your private sector, there were certain policies that your government claimed it would make and would make sure, such as the removal of barriers to microfinance. However, there were certain policies that were later on passed by the National Bank,
One
and
sentence, one
obviously they
one
had no
Sentence is
such.
over.
Yes, sir.
sentence.
Yes, sir. And
France.
furthermore, academic institutions, your private sector, the banks, they have not passed any of the legislations that they claim to have done. And in fact, there have been many instances in the private sector as well, where there has been stigmatization against religion. So if you claim that there is no such instances that take place, and it is a very heinous. All right, sir, I stop.
Right, thank you.
All right.
Germany, do you have an
Yes,
answer
sir.
to it, or do you want to research and give an answer tomorrow?
No, I do have an answer to this. The delegate does have an answer to this. Now, the delegate of Australia mentioned that the delegate of Germany has said that no such instances take place. Well, that is nowhere close to what the delegate of Germany said. The delegate of Germany said that the government of Germany does not support or believe in stigmatization or discrimination on any basis. All right. Then the delegate of Australia said that it is the private sector which has not been offering, which has been discriminating against religions. Right now, that firstly, that is just a claim which has been thrown. You have not backed up your claim with any single evidence, and you need, because the delegate of Germany requires evidence, and it is the private sector which we're talking about, not the public sector. Please.
Sir, please to follow up. Sir, please to follow up, please.
Denied. We have to move on with
Sir,
the
I
moderator.
have one point of
End the committee for the
sir,
day.
I have one point of
That was
information. Sir, please. Sir,
what?
may I?
Please.
Sir, please. I said please for Germany.
Pardon?
So, a point of information for Germany, if the executive board allows it.
Point of information to Germany.
Yes, sir.
I'll allow that. Japan, go on.
Okay, sir. So it is said that almost all anti-Semitic crimes in Germany in 2019 were committed by right-wing extremists, according to a recently published government report. In it, it said the politically motivated crime in 2019. In the report, politically motivated crimes are divided into right-wing crimes, left-wing ideology,
Delegate,
crimes motivated
could
by
you
religious
send this question
ideology
and the article you're talking about as a POI in the WhatsApp group and like @me in the group? I'll check it personally. All right.
Okay, sir.
Since you're the next speaker, I have to move on to the moderate caucus as well. Send this in the group with the article. Mention the entire article. Right? Just like quote the thing. And tag me. I'll check it. Cool.
Personal privilege.
Go on, delegate.
Yeah, no problem. The other delegate can go. No problem.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted. When are we going to?
We are gonna pause it after this moderate caucus, where we have Japan followed by India, followed by Netherlands, followed by Australia.
So, point of personal
So,
privilege.
yes, Australia, you have 30 seconds.
All
Go
right,
on.
sir. So the fact that the delegate of Germany stated, "I have no evidence," sir, I have the evidence, and the question
Evidence. Send it in the WhatsApp group. Delegate, you're not supposed to send the evidence right now because you have to move on with it. Send it in the WhatsApp group. Chits. Alright. The floor is not closed for chits. 2 EV chits. Why EV chits are not closed tonight? Like they were not closed yesterday, but I listened to only Australia's. I need way too many allegations tonight. Alright. Okay. Moving on. All of delegates send. Yes, entertain. Go on, Germany.
Yes, I lagged out in the middle of speaking, and answering the question of delegate of Australia. So what exactly happened after that?
The WhatsApp group, and I need a
Alright.
full-fledged answer. I don't need a poll answer. All right.
Okay. There's a request that can the delegate of Australia send in the evidence and everything she's talking about on the group?
I know Delegate of Australia
Sir,
will send in a lot of evidence. Delegate, so
a point of order on the executive.
yeah, go on.
Order in the executive board, so burden of proof will not lie on this on me.
No, it would not lie on you. The point of order is an order. You just have to present some proof that Germany asked for and the stuff you claimed. If Germany has to prove something, Germany would send in proofs as well regarding the same. All right, moving on. We have Japan for the next 120 seconds. Japan, you may start now. Delegate, you have 120 seconds for your speech. You may start. Japan.
Sorry, sir. I was on the WhatsApp group. Sorry. Sir, may I restart? Sorry, please.
Yes, sir. You may start. You may start.
Okay. Thank you for the recognition. For a long time in Japan, people who are disabled or minorities were treated as imperfections and treated as such, either worsening their situation financially or socially, or adding disabilities to themselves and their family. Today, Japan and many other countries have signed motions and enforced rules so that our culture and religion don't affect our justice and rational thinking. The countries which have signed the CRPD and such motions have helped each person of faith to think clearly. Japan has spread awareness through news, rules, media, etc., and disabled persons around the world are more or less safe and happy, but there are still many who are victim to discrimination. Thus, Japan supports all countries to work on such and help these persons in their fight for equality and justice. Japan has helped in rehabilitation, job opportunities, and helping parents who take care of their children who have severe or moderate disabilities. A country must ideally keep the religion, culture, and beliefs on one side and their law, justice, and equality on the other. Disabled persons need equality and deserve equality. Due to COVID-19, Japan has had economic problems and has had to put work on these agendas on hold and focus on getting its economy back up. But Japan has started to recover and works to better the situation. Thank you.
All right, delegate. Moving on, we have delegate of India for 60 seconds. You may start India. Delegate of India. India, is your Wi-Fi working fine? Is your Wi-Fi finally working? All right, India, I'm cutting you off from the moderate caucus since this is your second time. Like, it's not your fault, but the Wi-Fi is glitchy. I understand. You can send the speech to me. Just write part of speech or write the speech in the text and send it to me on WhatsApp. I'll mark it. All right, moving on. We have Netherlands for 60 seconds. You may start, Netherlands.
Thank you for the recognition. Religious acceptance plays a vital role in the inclusion of disabled in the society. In many cultures, disabled people are somewhat religiously accepted. Islamic, Christian, Jewish, and Buddhists believe disabled people play a very important role within the communities. Disability is not simply a punishment for mistakes but has the purpose to show others, the healthier and the wealthier people, respect, humility, and charity. From the beginning, Christianity tried to integrate disabled people into society as creatures of God. It is written in the Gospels that Jesus used to live among blind, paralyzed, and deaf people as well as among mentally disabled people. To serve them, to be humble towards them, made a person greater in the eyes of God. In Buddhism, the concept of the disabled person receives the karma of past life. Strictly seen, disability is the result of committed mistakes in past life. In Islamic religion, people believe that weaker people have an extra position in the eyes of God.
Delegate, you may stop
They have
from Islamic religion. All right, because you will elapse your time. Australia, the last speaker for today. You have 30 seconds, Australia. Not one more second after that. 30 seconds, I'll stop you, even if you're in the middle of the point. There's no point of orders. You may start, Australia, last speaker of the day.
Sir, one moment.
Yes, Australia, you may find your speech. or make it in your head.
Privilege.
Yes, Netherlands.
Chair, can I send the rest of the speech to you as as a chat on WhatsApp?
Yes. Now you can just write part of speech and then mark it like a speech.
Okay, thank you.
All right, delegates. Now,
Australia, go.
all right, delegates. Now, let's talk about how the education system of Germany is failing. In Germany today, parents are only theoretically allowed to choose which school they want to send their kids to. In reality, German schools are still allowed to reject children when they face disability, compared to the 1980s, where many more disabled
point
children
of
could go
personal
to school.
privilege.
Now, so there was a.
Sorry, sir. Point to personal privilege. Sorry for disrupting
Delegate,
your
you may not
speech,
raise the
but
point of personal when a delegate is speaking. But like, go on.
so actually the volume was too high, so I could not understand a thing. Sorry.
Delegate, that is.
Sorry for disrupting.
Yeah, that was no way of interrupting Australia. Australia was speaking. She only had 5 more seconds left. You could turn the volume down of your own headset if that is okay with you. Do not interrupt the speaker while they're speaking.
So may I restart?
Australia.
Yes, sir.
You may restart.
Okay. So 1 minute. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, delegates. Now let's talk about how Germany's education system is failing. In Germany today, parents can only choose which school they want to send their kids to. In reality, German schools are still allowed to reject children with disabilities when they think that they can't make suitable accommodations. Compared to the 1980s, many less disabled children can actually get admission to the schools. Now let's talk about how Spain's education system is failing, because the Federal Labor Court made it clear that it is possible. Federal Labor Court and the convention made it very, very clear that that the schools are allowed to reject children who are disabled.
All right.
Thank you.
Australia, final point of the day on Spain, 2 allegations. Thank God. I'll write that allegation down. I am not
Point of
okay.
personal privilege.
Yes, delegate of Spain.
Can the delegate of Australia repeat all the allegations on the delegate of Spain?
Australia, can you repeat that allegation on delegate of Spain very slowly? Just like go slower and just like be a little more clear so that we can understand.
All right. So if an employee, applicant, or a person applying for a school is discriminated against by the employer, the Equal Treatment Act provides for a compensation claim against the discriminated person. However, the court has always ruled has mostly ruled in favor of the non-disabled applicant, and has not awarded any compensation to the disabled when it comes to actually applying the Equal Treatment Act in reality. Furthermore, the Spanish Federal Labor Court, and furthermore, and the conventions on the rights of child clearly have the loophole that they allow the school or the college or the office or any other institution to actually discriminate against the disabled people, because it is due to the presumption that the employer has to prove that there is no discrimination has occurred. However, it does not happen, and the Spanish systems are failing because of this. Furthermore, it has the fact that these are not processed, and these are not processed, not overlooked, and there is no obligation to provide evidence, and therefore it can be stated that the Spanish education system and the labor system is failing.
All right. Okay. Australia, come on. Spain, is that enough?
More
Spain?
than enough.
So point of personal privilege.
Yes, Japan.
So may I proceed to give a point of information to Australia?
There is no point of information. Point of information, if you have for a speech for somebody, I made Sir take an RP session. He did not explain. All right, never mind. I'll take छोड़ आरोपी यार मैं तो क्यों हाँ I'll explain it हिंदी में ठीक है जवान हिंदी में सुनो देखो अगर भी स्पीच दे चुका है ठीक है और moderate focus finally I would not be moving out of the GSL. I'm ending the comedy session right here for today.
The point of personal privilege.
Yes, Finland, go on.
Could I answer the question of what the delegate of Australia said during that time?
I had a good nap.
This is just fun.
Delegate, I want to give you a right of reply, but that is denied. You may send all your answers on chat right after the committee ends today. All right. I'll sit down and I'll mark all of them right here. I won't
So
move till I
point of
mark your
personal
answers.
privilege.
Yes, Australia.
Sir, when there's a right, right of reply via chat, sir, even like I mean, I will get to read it. So I need to give reply to that, or can I just tell you via chat or via a speech? Is how would you like to
Again,
have it?
when I'm saying I have to mark them, when I'm saying that send it to me via chat, or if I'm denying a right of reply, I'm send it via chat. Tag me.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, you can reply to it. It's in the WhatsApp group. You can reply to it. It's completely fine. Germany, all the answers write to the delegate, or just address the committee to the committee from Germany via at their other. All right.
Okay, chair.
Okay. Thank you so much, delegates.
All right. He's forwarding a link in the WhatsApp group. Please fill that.
Delegates,
That
kindly
is for
fill the feedback form that
Yeah.
Tisya ma'am or I ends today on my discussion. I'll meet you guys tomorrow at 12:30 dot. I think 12:30.
Sir, what
I'll
is
be
the
drinking
documentation
tonight. I don't know.
you'll be looking for? Sir, is a press release all right?
A press release is all right.
It. So I personally feel we can do it for 20. And in case it is that people are not wanting to speak, or we lapse the time like before, that is 15 minutes may he like everyone whatever wanted to speak got covered, then that's perfectly all right as well. And then the sixth one is condition of the disabled during armed conflicts. Now during armed conflicts, that particular thing we've not yet spoken, we've not yet touched upon, right? And that's completely untouched. So we just probably do that for 20 minutes. And again, it applies for every, like if it you like the time finishes 15 minutes means everyone gets covered, everyone speaks, then that's totally fine. We just move on to the next one. We aim that we're able to do all six, but if we can't do all six today, we shift like the last two to the next day, and then tomorrow we have the solutions
And then
the
and then we
final
again
paper.
plan for tomorrow, but with less like 4
Exactly.
points tomorrow.
Yeah, right. And anyone else has any doubts? Because I see that we have like a minute left. So any doubts anyone has, we can just clear them up right now.
I have something to add here. Like I think the delegate of France, that I think there are people who want to speak about the legal framework of their country right now, right? So the first what we have is loopholes in the legal framework. So if we rephrase that as something like discussing the legal framework or something, so if the delegates who want to discuss
Loopholes is a completely different aspect.
Yeah, actually, these are two different topics. So
Let's frame the topic like discussing national and international legal frameworks. Does that work? Like discussing the flaws and the good points also get covered, the flaws also get, everything gets covered.
yeah,
All
okay.
right. Anyone against it? Delegate of Germany, you're fine with that, right?
Agreed.
No. Why will I be against it?
Yeah. No. Since you suggested, I was just making sure you're fine with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Actually, I had one question. The
Yeah.
loopholes in legal frameworks, I don't really get how that's related with the agenda we have at hand.
All right. So, like legal frameworks, like you might already be aware, like the CPRD. Now, all these are obviously important to our agenda at hand. And I mean, without legality, without discussing how legally people are protected, we can't move ahead, right? So that's why it's important. And now we're rephrasing it as something like as follows. The first is discussing international and national legal frameworks, right? So this includes your national frameworks. As the delegate of Finland, you may want to talk about your national policies. Or as the delegate of Australia, I may want to talk about international policies. I may want to talk about anything, but it might be related to a little bit of law. So that's how it gets related to the agenda. Is that fine? Because I see we've elapsed our time already. So if anyone
I
has
might just say, sorry.
You still want 5 more minutes or what?
No. Just it'll take like
no, sir.
half a minute of mine. So can we just for the first point can we speak for once and then change the topic?
Yeah, sure, no problem. If like it's a mod, you have an option of not even speaking. So like if you personally do not want to speak or give a speech, you have the option completely open with you. And then if no one is speaking, obviously the chair can then just move on, and like I mean, if there are no speakers, we just move on to the next something like a next procedure. So that is like completely acceptable. So it doesn't matter. Like if you don't want to speak, don't speak. It's not a compulsion.
Okay, sure.
Sir, I think we're done with the unmod.
All right, we can begin the committee. Let's start with the attendance. Australia.
Present and voting.
All right. Finland.
Present.
Present. All right. France.
Present and voting.
All right. Germany.
Present.
Present. All right. India.
Present and voting.
Present and voting. All right. Japan. Delegation of Japan.
Present.
Present. All right. Netherlands.
Present and voting.
Noted. Norway. Isle of Norway. We don't have Norway with us. All right. Russia is not here, obviously. I did write his name. Spain.
Present and voting.
All right. I'm noted. Are there any points on the floor? All right. Then we can continue. We have to establish the GSL again. Are there any speakers wishing to speak in the GSL? Since we elapsed the GSL yesterday.
The point of order on executive board.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, since we lapsed the GSL, so technically the committee is over. So how can we establish a GSL?
We said we're going to recognize more speakers today.
Sir, but if once the GSL elapses, sir, we can.
I had one more speaker that was a delegate of Pakistan, and delegate of Pakistan had 10 seconds left. So technically, we still have time. Technically, the GSL did not elapse. Yeah, 10 seconds left. All right. I guess we should speak with GSL. Kindly raise your hands. I recognize Germany. I recognize France. India. Delegate, put your country's name in front of your name. I'll take Netherlands. I'll take Spain. Followed by Finland, followed by Japan. All right, Germany on the floor for the next 90 seconds. You may start, delegate.
Thank you, Executive Board, for the recognition. Inclusion is not a strategy to help people fit into the system and structures which exist in our societies. It is about transforming those systems and structures to make it better for everyone. Inclusion is about creating a better world for everyone. As quoted by Ms. Diana Richlow, the former president of Inclusion International. Stereotypical views of disability emphasize wheelchair users and a few other groups, such as blind and deaf people. However, the disability experience resulting from the interaction of health conditions, personal factors, and environmental factors vary greatly. While impairments correlate with disadvantages, not all people with disabilities are equally disadvantaged. Disabled women experience greater gender discrimination as well as disabling barriers. School enrollment rates differ among impairments, with the children who are physically impaired generally fare better than those who are intellectually or intellectual or sensory disabilities. The most excluded from the labor market are often those with mental health difficulties or intellectual impairments. People with more severe impairments are often experience greater disadvantage. While many countries have started taking action to improve the lives of people with disabilities, much remains to be done. Disability is not curable. It is an integral part of the personality of persons with disabilities and deserves respect. Disabling structures and conduct are, however, curable. The name of the therapy is inclusion. We must work towards making the world
Alright, delegate, you elapsed all of your time. You may stop.
So point of personal privilege.
Yes, delegate.
Sir, I got disconnected, sir, but I was raising a point of order against the executive board.
Ma'am, we did clarify that point of order since the Pakistan delegate have had 3 to 5 seconds left. We did not actually exactly exhaust the GSL, so we can take more stays in the GSL since the Pakistan delegate is not here. And my discussion, I take is 5 minutes.
Sir,
30
but
seconds.
sir, we clearly remember, sir, the delegate of Pakistan had elapsed the time and you had said that they had to stop
I gave
speaking.
him more time, my discretion.
All right, sir. So point of
Thank you
personal
so much,
privilege.
ma'am. We
Sir,
don't
point of
want a
personal
point of order reception. We already have Mrs. Siddhan Nagar point of order reception today.
Sir,
Yes, ma'am. Do you want to be
sir,
recognized
point of
as?
personal privilege.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I needed to be added to the GSL, sir, but due to connection issues, I got disconnected for some
Now I
reason.
recognize you in the GSL.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Delegate of France. This time I'm kind of stop laughing. And Delegate of France, you have the floor for the next 90 seconds. You may start.
Thank you so much for the recognition. Individuals having difficulties to perform the activities of daily living may benefit from public long-term care support. France distinguishes between handicap benefits accessible to individuals below 60 and dependent schemes for individuals aged 60 and older. This paper assesses the effects of the age 60 threshold in the French LTC policies using the French Health and Disability Survey in two ways. First, we estimate the effect of being 60 and older on the probability to receive non-medical formal care and informal home care, controlling from a rich set of social demographic characteristics and age effects. Being a dependent elderly rather than a handicapped adult little affects the probability to receive home care. However, it increases the formal care utilization and to a lesser extent decreases the probability to receive informal care. Second, we implement the regression discontinue approach and provide evidence that the institutional age threshold affects living arrangements. As individuals above age 60 and are more likely to be recorded as living in an institution. The architecture of LTC policies affect the individual's day-to-day difficulties are being compensated, thereby undermining horizontal equality in the use of formal LTC.
All right, Delegate. Thank you so much. You have elapsed all of your time. Are there any points on the floor? Are there any motions on the floor? I recognize India, followed by Australia, followed by Germany. India.
The delegate of India would like to suspend formal debate and move into a moderated caucus on the topic disability and rehabilitation.
All right. Total time being?
Total time being 20 minutes, 60 seconds per speaker.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. Australia.
All right. The delegate of Australia would like to suspend formal debate and move into a moderated caucus on the topic loopholes in the legal frame. Sir, could I please repeat the topic?
Sure, ma'am. Completely fine with me.
All right. The delegate of Australia would like to suspend formal debate and move into a moderated caucus on the topic analyzing the national and international legal frameworks for a total time of 20 minutes and individual speakers' time being 60 seconds.
Right now, 2060.
Point of personal
Yes, sir.
privilege.
Yes, ma'am.
Could the delegate of India please repeat the topic of the moderator?
Delegate of India or Australia, ma'am?
India.
All right. India's was disability and rehabilitation.
Thank you.
Delegate of Germany.
Sir, I had the same motion as the delegate of Australia. Thank you.
All right, ma'am. Moving on, we'll be voting upon the motion of India 2060 rehabilitation. Delegates in favor. All right. Delegates against. The motion clearly fails. Voting on the motion presented by the delegate of Australia 2060 loopholes in national and international frameworks. Delegates in favor.
So point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Yes, delegate.
So maybe abstain in voting for motion.
Delegate, you cannot abstain from voting for a motion on the moderate caucus. You have to vote on a moderate caucus. All right, the motion clearly passes. We are now in a moderate caucus for a total timing 20 minutes, each speaker timing 60 seconds. Australia, first speaker.
Yes, sir.
All right. Give me a minute, modify. All right, Australia. Delegates wishing to speak in the moderate caucus, kindly raise your hands. I take Spain. I take India. I'll recognize Finland. Are there any more delegates wishing to speak in the moderate caucus? All right, I'll recognize France. First speaker, Australia. Japan. I'll recognize Germany. I'll recognize Germany. All right, that's it. Australia, you may start. You have the next 60 seconds.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
All right. Persons with disabilities are often excluded from the mainstream society and are denied their human rights. Discrimination against persons with disabilities takes various forms, ranging from discrimination on the individual level to at the macro level, and the denial of educational opportunities to more subtle forms of discrimination like segregation and isolation in everyday life. Despite some progress in the legislations over the past decades, such violation of human rights for persons with disabilities have not been systematically addressed in the society, and therefore Australia calls for some strict international collaboration and action. The situation with persons with disabilities often are addressed in the often need to be addressed in the times of rehabilitation and social services. A need exists for more comprehensive legislations to ensure that rights of disabled in all aspects, that is political, civic, economic, and social and cultural rights, are guaranteed. Furthermore, international frameworks such as the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Convention on the Rights of Children, the International Convention on the Protection of Rights of all Migrant Workers and the members of their family, the ILO Convention concerning vocational rehabilitation and employment for disabled persons, the Convention on the Right of Child, especially emphasis on Article number 23, the African Charter of Human and People's Rights, Article 18, Part 4, need to be ratified by all the countries around the world. Furthermore, declarations such as the rights of the mentally retarded
You have your
persons.
time. I only mark till furthermore. So from furthermore, you may speak if you get recognized again.
All right, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Spain, you have to go for the next 60 seconds. You may start, delegate.
Thank you, EB, for the recognition. One of the biggest loopholes in the Spanish laws is that the people with disabilities are not readily signing up to employment programs because the system is too complex with a number of decentralized and centralized actors, including the Public Employment Service and the Institute of Social Security. What the Spanish government has done to resolve this issue is that they have increased the emphasis on the current vocational rehabilitation and training, as they felt that the current focus on mainstreaming has not sufficiently helped people with disabilities in getting jobs. Another problem in the constitution was that the Spanish labor law contains a series of obligations for employers, but these regulations are not enforced. To solve this issue, the Spanish government has passed out many disability policies in collective agreement which are stronger. On top of all this, another problem is that the laws is that some elements of the disability benefit system need to be adjusted to today's medical, economic, and labor market. In Spain's view, the 20% supplement to a partial disability benefit for unemployment people aged 55 and over is a strong incentive not to seek work. More employment support for the disabled people would be a better alternative. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You lost all of your time. Moving on, we have the delegate of India. You may start, India.
The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities sets out the legal obligations of state parties to promote and protect the rights of persons with disabilities. For the Convention to make a difference in the lives of persons with disabilities and their families, caregivers, and communities, state parties must implement it. A key requirement in this regard, as set out in Article 4, general obligations, is for state parties to harmonize domestic law with the Convention. The responsibilities of state parties under Article 4 include adopting all appropriate legislation, administrative, and other measures for the implementation of the rights recognized in the Convention, taking all appropriate measures including legislation to modify or abolish existing laws, regulations, customs, and practices that constitute discrimination against persons with disabilities, take all appropriate measures to eliminate discrimination on the basis of disability by any person, organization, or private enterprise. In addition to the general provisions contained Article 4, the Convention in some cases also provides instructions for legislative measures that state parties are to take in relation to specific rights. For example, it requires state parties to take appropriate measures, including legislative measures, to prevent persons with disabilities from being subjected to torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, and to
All right, ma'am,
protect
you've lost
persons.
all of your time. Thank you so much. You may speak again if you get recognized. Now we have Finland. You have the floor for the next 60 seconds. You may start, delegate of Finland.
Thank you for recognizing Finland. So in this, we could examine the difficulties in the implementation of international conventions and protocols on women in conflict situations. In recent decades, there has been a growing international interest on issues pertaining on to women. With a full understanding of the unique impact of the war situation on women, the international community has put in place laws to safeguard women's rights in those situations. Unfortunately, there are a number of difficulties in the enforcement and implementation of these international laws, denying the existence of conflict situation, a weak legal framework, patriarchy, gender inequality, impunity, insufficient data and research, and other factors will be discussed here as difficulties in counter the enforcement and implementation of international conventions and protocols on gender, women's rights, and conflict situations. So, what the government of Finland has done, amending Section 15 of the Disability Services and Support Act, if the insurance institution is required to pay compensation to a disabled person. Accident and Occupational Diseases Act 459 2015, the Agricultural Entrepreneurs Accident and Occupational Diseases Act 873 2015. An application for recovery must be made to the administrative court within 3 years of the
All right, delegate, you lost
insurance
all of your time.
institutions.
Delegate. I cannot audible enough. Plus, I stopped marking you after the last act you spoke, so you can continue in the last act in your next speech.
Okay,
Right.
Maybe.
Delegate of France, you have the floor for the next 60 seconds. You may start, France.
Thank you for the recognition. In 1971, the Declaration on Rights of Mentally Retarded Person was adopted by the UN General Assembly. The declaration for the first active attempt to grant disability rights to the mentally ill people. The declaration, among other things, laid down certain guidelines to be adopted by the mentally ill people. Some of these were recognition of mentally ill people as a separate category of physically challenged individuals and providing them certain safeguards accordingly. The member nations shall ensure the economic security of mental ill by devising suitable programs so that they can earn their living. Special care shall be taken for these people in a social planning by the state. Even after planning all this, there are a few loopholes. People with disabilities access to the participation in society. People with disabilities experience barriers to participation in society in a variety of critical areas. In our healthcare system, in which insurance is intimately tied to employment, people with disabilities often lack adequate insurance coverage to pay their medical bills. Not
All right,
only
delegate,
that,
you lost all of your time. I'll let you finish the point. I would not interrupt you while you're speaking, but just look at the timer while you're speaking. Because if you've gone over 1 minute and you're speaking your point, you just stop after finishing your point. Those are all delegates.
fine.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, France. Now we have the delegate of Japan. You have the floor for the next 60 seconds. Delegate, you may start. Delegate of Japan.
Thank you for the yes, sir. Thank you for the recognition. On January 20, 2014, the United Nations Convention of the Rights of sorry, sir, may I have the permission to restart? Sir?
Yes, delegate.
Sir, may I have the permission to restart?
Yes, delegate, you may restart. Completely fine with me.
On 20 January 2014, Japan ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. On as it signed the CRPD, or the also known as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, in which in point 3 it is written that full and effective participation in society, and Japan believes that this also includes legal participation. Thus Japan has Japan believes that this needs that a person may be employed and earning. Thus, in 2008, the Law for Employment Promotion of the Disabled Persons 1916 1960 was revised to ensure that employees would provide equal opportunities to employees would provide equal opportunities to those with disabilities both during the hiring process, Article 34, and while they are in employment, including wages, training, and welfare, according to Article
All
35.
right, delegate, we've elapsed all of your time. Could you just give us a minute? Thank you so much. All right, delegates, could you give us a minute? Yeah, great. Delegate of Germany, or for the next 6 seconds, you may start Germany.
The delegate of Germany would like to take this opportunity to discuss the legal framework of Germany because the legal system comprises one of the greatest tools for people with disabilities in order to ensure and protect their fundamental rights. Now, Germany has two main acts and laws. The General Equal Treatment Act in Germany is ubiquitous and provides very comprehensive protection against discrimination of any kind. It is a framework that encompasses the certain norms to be adhered while protecting the employees with disabilities and suffering from discrimination to ensure full and effective participation. Some of the norms are employment and working conditions and remuneration and terms of dismissal should be fair. Access to all types and levels of vocational trainings, advanced vocational training and retraining, including practical work experience, should exist for the disabled persons. Any provisions which are held to be discriminatory will be invalid, and the employees, if employees are discriminatory, the employer would be deemed as to be a violation of the contractual obligation. Thank you.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. I'll be recognizing more speakers for the moderate caucus. Delegates wishing to speak again or wishing to speak in the moderate caucus, can you raise your hands? I'll be recognizing Australia. Can you give me a minute, delegates? Australia, followed by India, followed by, you have Netherlands, we have Germany, I'll take France, Japan, and Finland. All right, delegates. Right next to all of you. Delegate of Australia, you may start. You have for the next 60 seconds. You may start, delegate.
All right, delegates. Now talking about the World Program of Action concerning disabled people, the talent guidelines for action on human resources development in the field of disability, principles for the protection of persons with mental illness and improvement of mental health care, the standard rules for the equalization of opportunities for the persons with disabilities, the ILO convention and concerning vocational rehabilitation of the disabled people. The entire world must ratify these conventions, must follow each and every guidelines given in these conventions, whether it is for the labor force, whether it's for people not in their labor force who have actually crossed the age for actually even working. Now, the entire world must ratify these conventions if we want to grow, prosper together, and uplift everyone in the international community. In addition, a general comment on the person with disability has been given by the Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. The general comments are authoritative statements, as you all might know, and they are basically, they talk about the rights that are enshrined in the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Furthermore, we must recognize that there is something known as the application of law and the actual practice of law and what the role of the domestic courts is. I'll continue in my further speech. Thank you.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much for putting to the time limit. We have the delegate of India. You may start, delegate.
So I would like to continue from my previous speech. For example, it requires state parties to take appropriate measures, including legislative measures, to prevent persons with disabilities from being subjected to torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punish, Article 15, and to protect persons with disabilities from all forms of exploitation, violence, and abuse, Article 16. Legislation plays an important role in CPRD Convention on the Rights of Persons and Disabilities implementation in all countries, but its role varies depending on the legal context in each country. In some countries, new legislation is needed to write the provisions of an international convention in the laws on of the land. In other countries, an approved international treaty is automatically accepted as the part of the law and can, for example, be directly enforceable by courts. In some cases, a mixture of both approaches might be needed. That is, parts of convention might automatically become law, but some parts might need new legislation to bring provisions into law.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. That's all of your time. Moving on to the delegate of Netherlands. You may start, delegate.
Thank you, Evie, for the recognition. When the Netherlands ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in the summer of 2016, a wave of joy spread to the disabled community. The joy was also felt among parents and partners of people with disabilities. They felt that the long awaited change had come and the rights of the people with disabilities would be respected and recognized by the citizens. The Netherlands is going to enforce equal opportunities for work, education, housing, voting, etc. In short, the introduction of the treaty brought hope. The UN Disability Treaty was introduced in the Netherlands on July 14, 2016. The purpose of this treaty is to promote and protect and safeguard the human rights of people with disabilities. Central concepts in the treaty are inclusion and full participation. The treaty specifies what the government must do to ensure that the position of people with disabilities improves. It stipulates, among other things, that people with disabilities have the right to live independently, go to school, use public transport, and/or work just like everyone else. The government must ensure that this is
All right, we elapsed all of your time. I stopped buying from the government. You may continue your next speech. I didn't anything to this. I am really sorry, delegates, for the disturbance. That of Germany, and for the next 6 seconds, you may start Germany.
Now, talking about the German social code, it also strives for the protection of the integrity of the people with motor deficits. Severely disabled employees have special rights and protections under this law. The German social code exists for severely disabled people, and they're treated under this German social code of conduct. There are certain norms for employers now. Employers offering more than 20 positions must employ a certain number of disabled employees in order to avoid statutory compensation payment of the integration office. Disabled employees are entitled to 5 holidays extra per year. Disabled employees can only be dismissed with the prior consent of the appropriate authority. Disabled employees are entitled to an accessible workplace. They are entitled to work part-time if necessary due to their individual handicap, and where more than 5 employees are disabled, a representative of the disabled employees must be elected in order to delegate and supervise and address their grievances. Hence,
Right,
this
ma'am.
is
Thank you so much.
becoming equal.
Ma'am, you've elapsed your time. I'll just take it in the next speech. If you can just re-speak the point in the next speech, I'll mark it. Delegate of France, you may start.
Thank you for the recognition. I will continue from my previous speech. Not only their healthcare expenses greater, but their incomes are lower and they are almost twice as likely to be the federal poverty level than the general population. 2.86% of people with disabilities live below the poverty levels versus 5.6% of the general. This creates a significant financial burden for the people with disabilities, their families, and the government programs that help support them